So, in the case of arteriosclerosis, basically arterio means artery, and sclerosis means hardening or thickening. So, the meaning of the word arteriosclerosis is arteries will become harder or thicker, or thickening or hardening. So, this is how a normal artery will be appearing. Now, what happens in the case of arteriosclerosis is that there will be fat deposition or cholesterol deposition, and cholesterol will be settling or depositing on the inner wall of the artery like this. So, when too much cholesterol is deposited like this, the space inside the artery, or which we call the cavity of the artery or lumen of the artery, will get reduced. So only little amount of blood can pass through that artery. So that is basically what we call arteriosclerosis, and it is actually promoted by the presence of too much cholesterol in your blood. So higher the amount of cholesterol, and that extra cholesterol will be settling or depositing on the inside or inner wall of the artery, creating a situation of blocking. And this is called plaque. Here you can see that these are fat plaques. So this kind of deposition are known by the name cholesterol plaques or fat plaques, that will be reducing the space inside the artery or the lumen of the artery, so that only very little blood can pass through that. Sometimes what happens is that this kind of plaques or cholesterol deposition will be completely blocking the artery. And if it is completely blocking the artery, what will be the effect? For example, an artery to your brain is blocked by the method situation like this. So that brain will not be able to get any blood or any oxygen, and lack of oxygen for 5 minutes or 10 minutes for a brain will result in permanent damage to the brain. And that is what is happening in the case of stroke also. Brain cells will be dying as a result of lack of oxygen, because there is no blood supply to the brain tissue. Then another situation can also happen. For example, your heart is working because one blood vessel is supplying heart the required oxygen and other nutrients, and that blood vessel is known by the name coronary artery. And if coronary artery has a block like this, what will happen is that the heart will not be getting any oxygen or any nutrients. So lack of oxygen or nutrients to your heart muscle will result in a situation that that muscle will not be working, or heart will stop working. And that is one situation which is leading to heart attack. So that is another situation where the lack of this kind of block caused by cholesterol or fat deposition can cause fatal or deadly damage to a person. Most of the time it can affect either brain artery or a heart arteries. So that is the situation in the case of a arteriosclerosis. See, here you can see that arteriosclerosis occurs when blood vessels from your heart to the rest of your body become thick and stiff. There are two situations, and that thickness and stiffness is actually because of the deposition of this cholesterol or fat particles, sometimes restricting blood flow to the organs and tissues, so that enough amount of blood will not be coming to different organs or different tissues. Healthy arteries are normally flexible and elastic. That is another characteristics of an artery. If you take an artery, normally it is like a cycle tube. Now it has some elastic nature. So when blood is flowing through that, it can slightly bulge. That nature or that elastic property of the artery will be lost when too much fat is deposited inside. So that is why this situation is known as arteriosclerosis, thickness or stiffness of the artery. So that the wall in your arteries can harden. That is why we call it as sclerosis, hardening of artery, a condition commonly called as hardening of the artery. And arteriosclerosis is a specific type of atherosclerosis is a specific type of arteriosclerosis. There is not much difference between this atherosclerosis. One has an H here, and other is arteriosclerosis. Both are somewhat used interchangeably, but atherosclerosis usually refer to buildup of fat, cholesterol, and other substance in on or artery wall. So that is how the usually atherosclerosis is used, but sometimes medical profession interchangeably use these both terms interchangeably. Now what happens in the case of plaques is that sometimes these plaques can burst. See, this is a cholesterol plaque. Sometimes what happens is that they will get detached or dislodged from this area and will be moving through the blood vessel and may get blocked and create a block in another part of the body. So in that situation, if this kind of block or plaque is moving through an artery and reaching a very small blood vessel like capillaries, and it is creating a block there, what happens is that that part of the body is not getting enough oxygen or nutrients. So that is another situation that can complicate this complicate the whole situation. Although atherosclerosis is often considered a heart problem, it can affect arteries anywhere in your body. Normally, people dictate atherosclerosis only when heart muscles are affected, because that effect will be immediately visible. But on the other hand, if it is to an artery in your leg or hand, that is not going to cause very severe situation. Maybe slowly it will be creating, but any problem, even a mild problem affecting an artery going to heart, can be very immediately visible or immediately reflected. So atherosclerosis is usually preventable and treatable. Preventable and treatable means this is how the situation is developing. Now what happens is that what doctors are usually doing is that they will be removing this plaque, and inside by using a certain catheter, they will be inserting a tube into that. I will show you how this removal of see, we can see this all procedure here in some images may be there. So what they are normally doing is that they will be putting some tube like this. See, here you can see that they will be putting some tube into your artery, and normally how they are doing it is that, see, this is how they are doing it. See, they will be putting a tube, and at the end of the tube there will be a balloon like thing, and here you can see that a very small tube will be inserted into your blood vessel, and at the end of that there will be a balloon like thing, and when it is reaching this point of plaque, they will be inflating that balloon. Here you can see that somewhere. See, this is how, let me see if that picture is there somewhere here. See, here also you can see that. See, what they are doing is that they will be inserting, this is the point of block, they will be inserting that, and they will be inflating the balloon. Where that picture is what I am checking, so that you will be have a, see, this is the device that, see here also you can see that. See, this is how they are doing it. See, this is the block area, and this is the tube, and when tube is reaching, they will be inflating the balloon. See, here you can see that the balloon is inflated. So that because when balloon is inflated, what happens is that this fat particle will get dislodged or removed from that area, and after removing the fat particles, they will be putting a ring like this. And this here also you can see that there is a ring like structure they will be putting into that, and that ring is known by the stent. The purpose of putting that stent or ring like structure is that they will prevent further plaque formation in the same area. Sometimes what happens is that we will be removing the what we call we will be removing the plaque. Then after some time what happen is that on the same side fat particles will again get deposited. So first they will insert this tube, they will inflate the balloon. After inflating the balloon, here you can find a net like structure. It is mostly made up of steel. Here you can see that. Now in this situation it will be very collapsed. When inflated, it will form a ring like structure, and that ring will be permanently placed in the artery. That is known by the stent. And normally doctors are charging 10,000 for inserting each stent. So if 5 stents are put, they will charge you for 50,000. So that is how and this is known by the name angioplasty. This process is known by the name angiopsy. Planar titanium stent design. Titanium is a material, very expensive material. The advantage of using titanium is that titanium is almost like gold, will not react with our body. So that is the advantage of putting titanium. It's a heavy, it's actually a metal, but the advantage of using titanium is that it won't react with your body. So this is how here you can see, this is how the balloon angioplasty will be normally conducted. Here this is called balloon angioplasty. This process is known by the name balloon angioplasty. So next time when you hear angioplasty, this is the procedure that which doctors are doing. They have conducted a surgical, they are not doing any surgery. Actually they will be inserting a tube through one of the artery, maybe in the hand or in some other part of the body. Then it is a small tube, and inside that small tube a net will be there, a balloon will be there, and there will be a camera also will be there, and doctors will be also seeing the movement of this particle through the X-ray or CT scan or something, some device like that. So they can easily see the movement of the tube. Once the tube is in the right part, they will be inflating the balloon and slowly depositing this ring or stent in that place. So this is known by the name inserting the stent, and this all procedure is known by the name balloon angioplasty or simply angioplasty. So this is how the all procedure is conducted. Now we go to another area, that is electrocardiography. Now in case of electrocardiography, this is how the whole procedure is actually conducted. You might have noticed a graph like thing sometimes. This is an ECG graph, and this ECG graph is actually produced by an instrument like this. Here you can see that, and that instrument will be helping in the helping in taking a graphic pattern like this. Normally how an ECG is taken, that is what I am going to tell you. Here you can see that they have placed so many electrodes on the body of the patient, and around 12 electrodes will be placed. So in a conventional 12-lead ECG, 10 electrodes are placed on the limbs of the limbs and on the surface of the chest. Here you can see that. So around 10 electrodes will be placed on different parts of your body, some on your chest, some on your hand, and some on your leg. And what these electrodes are doing is that our body will be producing very minute electricity, and this faint or minute electricity will be dictated by these electrodes. Okay, so that is the purpose of that electrodes, and that will be taken to a device, and inside that device there is an amplifier like thing, and purpose of that amplifier like device is that it will be increasing the volt of this electric current many times, maybe 1,000 times or 10,000 times, so that it becomes a stronger signal, and that signal will be showing on a graph. So that is how they are producing this ECG device. So basically the electrodes will be dictating the tiny electrical changes on the skin that arise from heart during the depolarization. Depolarization usually means during the contraction as well as during the relaxation. So basically electrocardiography is a process of recording the electrical activity of your heart over a period of time using electrodes placed on the patient's body. That is how they are actually conducting this electrocardiography. Then you can see that the overall magnitude of heart's electrical potential is then measured from 12 different angles. That is why it is on the 12 lead ECG. They are measuring the electric current and over a period of time, usually 10 seconds. So for a period of 10 seconds, the doctor will be measuring the tiny electric current coming from different heart muscles, and by placing these electrodes on 10 different parts of the body. So there they will get an idea of how the heart is working. So in this way, the overall magnitude and direction of heart's electrical depolarization is captured at each moment through the cardiac cycle. The graph of the voltage versus time produced by this non-invasive medical procedure is referred to as an electrocardiogram. Now, during each heartbeat, the healthy heart will have an orderly progression of depolarization. Maybe in your plus 2 classes you have studied about the movement of depolarization on a nerve, and if you have not remembering that, we will be again taking that in during your nervous system in the module nervous system. So right now just remember that it is simply a change in the polarization or change in the electrical activity of the nerve, and that is gradually moving through the nerve in a orderly manner. Now what you usually have is that in your heart there is a pacemaker like thing called SA node. I will show you that SA node. Here we will see how this SA node is appearing. Let's see, let's find out that. So in a, you can see an SA node. See, here you can see that this is how the SA node will be appearing. Okay, here if you look at that, so in this part of the heart there is a small neural structure or neural cluster which we call as SA node. Normally what is happening is that this node is like a battery, and that battery like device will be producing electric current, and when that is producing electric current, it will be causing the contraction of this upper part called the auricles. And when that electric current is reaching another device structure known by the name AV node or atrioventricular node, that will result in the contraction of these two chambers known by the name ventricles. So here you can find two small neural structures known as SA node and AV node. Purpose of these two neural devices is that they are actually producing a small electric current, and that is responsible for the contraction of your heart. So that is how the contraction of heart is normally taking place, and we call these devices as the pacemakers of the heart. Here you can see that. So this is how the pacemaker is working. It is actually connected by a wired mechanism. Here also you can see, so this is one pacemaker and this is another pacemaker. So normally sometimes what happens is that this pacemaker may not be working properly, and in such a situation what our doctors are doing is that they will put an artificial battery. Now they will make a surgery on your chest, and they will insert a wire into this heart, and that wire will be, and that artificial pacemaker will be producing a small electric current every millisecond or something, and that will be leading to the contraction of heart. So normally this is how the pacemaker in your heart is working. Now we have to see what is about the other parts of the electrocardiograph. Actually, in an electrocardiograph, this is how the graphical pattern is usually visible, and you can see that Normally, if you look at the electrocardiograph, this is the how the graphical pattern is visible. In a normal electrocardiograph, we can see P, Q, R, S, and T. These are the different types of graphical images that we are getting. Here, the first graph known by the name P curve is known as a P curve that is produced when auricles are contracting. So when auricles are contracting, we are having a curve or graphical rise known by the name P curve. Then during the relaxation time, we are having a small curve gap known by the name PR segment. And this is followed by the what is called QRS. QRS is actually formed during the contraction of the ventricle. Then after that ventricles will be relaxing, and there is another time called T, which is known by the name the ventricular repolarization. That is when ventricles are relaxing, we are getting this curve known by the name this T curve. So this is how the normally the process of this arterial contraction and arterial relaxation is affecting in the formation of that. That is a typical ECG wave has three electrical entities or electrical currents. One is P wave, other is QRS complex, and third is T wave. P wave is referring to the atrial depolarization, that is produced when arteries or auricles are contracted, and QRS is actually when auricles are formed when ventricles are contracting, and T wave is formed when ventricles are relaxing. This is how normally they are produced. So if you look at a person, and if you by looking at the person, you can see that the person has a very normal QRS wave, very normal T wave, but in his body this height of this wave is very small. What is the meaning of that? If the height is very small, the P wave is normally produced when auricles are contracting. If in a person P wave is very shorter, it means in that person the auricles are not contracting properly. So that is a message doctors will be getting by simply looking at this curve. There is no clear P wave. That is, auricles are not contracting. At the same time, ventricles are contracting properly. Then another situation can take place. The P wave is quite normal. There is no problem with the P wave. And there is another wave called QRS wave. And QRS wave, instead of having a very higher, taller wave or higher, it is very short wave. That is, P wave is normal. QRS, the height of the P wave is not very high, not very tall. It is very short. That means there is a message, that there is an indication that there is something wrong with the working of the or contraction of the ventricle. If ventricle is contracting properly, it should produce a very higher QRS wave. Instead of that, we are only seeing a very short QRS wave. That means the contraction of the ventricle is not proper. So that is a message, or that is that we are getting when we are seeing that QRS wave is shorter. That indicates that something is wrong with the contraction of ventricle, and that may be because of several reasons. There can be block, or there can be some problem with the valve or other thing that only doctors can diagnose properly. So simply looking at this graph, doctors will be getting a lot of ideas regarding how normal your heart is working. If your heart is working quite normally, everything will be in a normal manner. So by simply looking at the ECG graph, a lot of things can be, what is rate and rhythm of the heartbeat can be measured. The size and position of your heart chambers can be detected. Then presence of any damage to the heart muscle can be detected. Then similarly, the effect of cardiac drugs or the function of artificial pacemakers which are implanted in your heart can be observed. So all these things can be very easily understood by studying a ECG graph. So that is the importance of electrocardiography or simply ECG, and this is how the ECG is not normally conducted. And I hope you will get some idea regarding the ECG, and this is what is expected from your syllabus. So this is regarding the process of taking ECG, and we have also studied something about the arteriosclerosis. So today we are stopping here.